All right, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the NHL Stanley Cup Final preview, breakdown, analysis, whatever you want to call this series that we're doing here. This is the 2025 Stanley Cup Final preview between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. We have a rematch after their epic clash last year in the Stanley Cup Final, which saw Florida win 7 games. We're going to run it back. We're going to go right back at it again. Two very similar teams with kind of minor adjustments, two very similar playoff runs, and two teams that really have to win for different reasons. For Florida, it would be back-to-back titles for them, and this would be their third Stanley Cup appearance in 3 years. Um, and for them to know, it would be their first Stanley Cup since 1990, almost 35 years ago. So definitely a big, and be Canada's first Stanley Cup since 1993. So big historical moments on the line here for both teams. I guess like we'll kind of run through my thoughts and how I feel about both teams and what I think both teams do well, what they don't do well, and what can they improve on, and how just some minor things might take the cup here in this match. So let's start with the team that won first. Let's start with the Florida Panthers, the reigning, defending, undisputed Stanley Cup champions of the world. Look, I knew they were going to beat Carolina. I didn't think they were going to be as dominant as they were when they beat Carolina. Look, defensive goaltending. That's what Florida does really well. They are an impeccable defensive team. Their goaltending with Bobrovsky is nothing short of phenomenal. Bob is probably the most consistent uh, goalie in these playoffs. Um, Look, they score 4 goals a game. They give up almost two, right? They have an 88 penalty kill, power play just under 24%. It's a really good Florida Panther team. It was the same team last year again, a couple minor adjustments here and there. But I think what you're seeing is you're seeing a more mature group in a weird way, and you're starting to see their secondary scoring come up again, right? You look at Sam Bennett leads the team in goals with 10, but if you go down their lineup, Anton Lundell with 5, Evan Rodriguez with 10 assists, Carter Verhaeghe with 6 goals, Lou Serenen with 4 goals, Brad Marchand 4 goals, right? Seth Jones 3 goals, Ekblad 3 goals, Mikko Mikkola 3 goals, Nate Schmidt 3 goals. They're getting contributions throughout their lineup while also having their big guys score. Barkov, 6 goals, 11 assists. Sam Reinhart, 4 goals, 9 assists. Tkachuk, 5 goals, 11 assists. They have a balanced lineup that can score as well as play a very physical team defense. You know, they hit hard, they push you to the boards, and you saw in the Carolina series they win a lot of board battles. That's just what they do. Their size, their speed, their strength is what definitely makes them a really tough team to defend against. And add to the fact that Bobrovsky's in goal, and he's been one of the more consistent goaltenders in the playoffs. It's a very formidable lineup. They're coached really well. Paul Maurice is a really good coach. We've been over this. I love Paul Maurice as a coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NHL. And yeah, I think this is a very potent, very strong, a very structured Florida Panther team that you know kind of had a rough regular season, as any Stanley Cup defending team does. But when push came to shove and they had to play in the playoffs, they handled business. Toronto definitely gave them a run for their money, but I don't think there was ever a sense of panic or worry with that team. So look, I think they are a much better team than they were last year, which is crazy to say, but their secondary scoring is what helps them. I really like this Florida Panther team. I think the addition of Brad Marchand has been huge for the bottom half of their lineup and their penalty kill and their power play. Um, if there's one thing I will say about them, their power play can get stagnant and it can kind of ruin their flow a little bit. And there are times where their scoring has dried up. That happened in the Carolina series, happened in the Toronto series. Their goaltending does. I mean, their scoring does dry up. right? So they could have an offensive explosion, or they could kind of fall flat on their face. But the thing is with that is like it doesn't happen enough times to warrant concern. But you can see them losing a game or two because they don't score enough, or because everybody's having an off night, and it will allow a team like Edmonton to get back into the series and into the game itself. So something to watch out there. We'll see. Um, we'll see how they adjust to that because again, like it is a high scoring team, but the volume of goals is kind of a point of concern, especially in the Toronto series. And Carolina had no problem scoring. It was just a one game four. Um, but it could be interesting to see if Edmonton defends them a certain way and how they respond to it. But I think in terms of adjustments and this series is going to go back and forth in terms of how teams adjust and how it's going to be the minor tweaks that matter here. And I think when we go to minor tweaks, let's go to the Edmonton Oilers. They beat the Dallas Stars in 6 games as well. A bit of an anticlimactic conference finals that we had from both teams. But look, the Oilers are they're the Oilers. They have their big horses. It's McDavid and Draisaitl leading the way in terms of scoring and goals and assists and points. The big surprise has been the play of Stuart Skinner. Right, he was absolutely one of the best players in that Dallas Star series that they just had, and he seems to be the go-to guy now. I know Calvin Picard is 6-0. But I feel like Stuart Skinner has differentiated himself from that group, and is starting to play really well. And I think he's deserved the starting spot over Calvin Picard. I think Skinner has been relatively decent, not great, but decent. But he was superb in the Star Series. Now, I think it needs to be a big improvement, right? It needs to be that same because going from the Dallas Stars team to now this Panther team is a big jump, and he needs to keep that level of consistency that we saw last round. So that's going to be a good test for him. And I think it's a good problem to have if Stuart Skinner starts struggling. You could go to Calvin Picard and hopefully get the same kind of, if not better, performance from Calvin Picard that he's been so far. So we'll see. And I think, Chris Knobloch is able to play the hot hand here and pick and choose there. But 30% power play. Uh, they score 4 goals a game. They give up almost 3. The big number here, 66% penalty kill. That is not good. That is not good at all. And I think when you make to a Stanley Cup final, it's going to be timely penalties that matter. And I think it's interesting because you have the Panthers on one hand who have a really good penalty kill, and the Oilers have a really good power play. Whereas you have the Oilers have a really bad penalty kill, and the Panthers who have been inconsistent on their power play. So that's kind of like it's going to be interesting to see how those two collide, and it could be for better or for worse an important part of this matchup. Um, but no, I think the big thing again that you see from this Edmonton Oilers team this year compared to last year, similar to Florida, is their secondary scoring. You have McDavid and you have Draisaitl doing their thing, but you had Zach Hyman before he got hurt, contributing 5 goals, 6 assists. Kasperi Kapanen with 3 goals in 7 games. Corey Perry with 7 goals. I mean, Corey Perry, 40 years old, has been a revelation. I mean, the guy just keeps going. He keeps chucking. Evander Kane with 5 goals and 6 assists. He's been providing offense. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with 5 goals, 13 assists. Evan Bouchard with 6 goals. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 6 goals, 11 assists. John Klingberg with a goal. It's just a really balanced lineup this time around that can at all levels on all lines could provide a goal threat. And I think that's been what's so improved about this Edmonton Oilers team the past couple of weeks going into the playoffs is that they don't have to rely on McDavid and Draisaitl. They will. Obviously they will. But in certain moments they don't have to. I think that is a big reliever for the top guys. So I think when you look at the two secondary scoring and two secondary like starting lines, you probably give the edge to Florida, but Edmonton can put up points. It can put up numbers. So it will be very interesting to see how that will progress and how that will work. Um, and like, I think what I can say about this Edmonton team is that they surprised a lot of people in the Dallas series. I feel like they surprised me. I definitely didn't think they were going to win that series in as dominant fashion as they did. I think I had to start even winning that series. That was a different conversation for a different day. But I think the big thing is what Stuart Skinner are we going to get? Are we going to get the Dallas Stars Stuart Skinner, or are we going to get the Knights and Kings Stuart Skinner? Right? If we get the Dallas Stars Stuart Skinner, this series is going to be so competitive. It's going to be back and forth. It's probably going to go 7 games again, and we're going to be in for a thrilling ride. If we get the Stuart Skinner that started the playoffs, it's going to be a quick series. It's going to be a quick series, and we're going to be good. We're going to be celebrating in Florida again. So look, I think this is a very, very interesting question proposed. Um, if Stuart Skinner is struggling, do we go to Calvin Pickard? Right, that could be an option. I could see. I could see Chris Knobloch having a quick hook, and with Picard playing so well, I would not be surprised if it's a move made early on, especially maybe in game 2, maybe even game 3. So we'll see how that will work out. And look, I like this Oiler group. I like their power play. They could score at will. Um, they're playing a tough defense. They're playing probably the toughest defense they've played in the playoffs. Dallas really didn't provide any physicality. The Knights kind of do, and the Kings kind of do as well. But those three teams cannot compare to how the Panthers play physically on the defensive side. And it's going to be interesting to see because this is a team that they handled pretty much last year, and they countered it with their speed and their skill and their individual talent, were able to get past that physical wall. But now Florida's doubled down on their physicality, and Edmonton's kind of doubled down on their speed. So we'll see kind of how and speed and skill. So we'll see kind of how that kind of clashes this time around. It's a very intriguing matchup, especially to see if we get Barkov and McDavid facing off against each other, which I think we probably will. Or if and I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with how much Tkachuk influences the series. And how much McDavid and Draisaitl can get out of it together, because at the end of the day, those are the two best players in the series, hands down. So if they can get going and they could really take over the series, Florida's gonna struggle. So I definitely give an edge to Edmonton in terms of scoring in that regard. And like this is because like I think if we're talking about where we give edges to, right? Offense, you probably give it to Edmonton, right? Defense, you definitely give it to Florida. Goaltending's kind of the mixed bag. I'm gonna lead towards Florida because I trust Bob more than I trust Skinner. But Skinner could have a really good playoff series and could really match and even out Bob. So we'll kind of see. It's a very interesting clash of styles. So it makes it hard to predict in that regard because you truthfully don't know what you're going to get till we get to game 1, which is tomorrow night, June 3rd, June 4th. Sorry. So we'll see. It's going to be a fun series. It's going to be an interesting series. It could very much go either way right now, in terms of who I think is going to win and who I think is going to prevail. I think both teams want it. I think both coaches want it. I think there's no the compete level is not going to be in any question. It's going to be physical. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fast. It's going to be the best representation of hockey, in my opinion. Dallas would have been fun to see in this round, but I think Florida and Edmonton, the rematch, going to be plenty of attention, going to be plenty of fun, going to be plenty of speed, a lot of goals, really great plays as well. All right, so enough dancing around it. My prediction. Look, I did not give Edmonton credit in the Dallas Star series when I did that preview. I gave Florida a lot of credit in their series when I did that preview. I feel like these teams are really even, and I feel like these teams are probably the perfect matchup for each other and how they counter each other. So it's going to be whoever can make adjustments, right? And I think when that happens, there's one thing that I always know for sure. Paul Maurice in playoff games can make minor adjustments better than Chris Knobloch. We've seen it. It happened last year, and we've seen it throughout this playoffs. Paul Maurice is a fantastic coach in playoff series, especially the later the series goes on. So, if Florida can steal one of these two games in Edmonton, and we go into game four, or game 3 and 4 in Florida, and we're tied 1-1, I give Paul Maurice a really, really good chance to take both those games in Florida. And I think game five probably goes to Edmonton, but I think that game six in Florida, that clincher game right there, I think that is going to be the game where we see a Paul Maurice coaching masterclass, and we see those minor adjustments, and we see their penalty kill, and their power play finally breaks through. And I think we have back-to-back Stanley Cup champions in the Florida Panthers. I think they beat Edmonton in six. I truthfully think that this is a better Florida Panther team than it was last year. I think their scoring is up there and better. Probably not better than Edmonton, but it's better, and it should be enough. And I think defense, Edmonton just can't handle that defense. It's too good, it's too physical, and they're going to lose every board battle. McDavid and Draisaitl will get their goals, they'll get their points, but it's going to be the matchups on the secondary, third line, and the fourth line that you're going to see the edge to Florida, and you're going to see it in the coaching, where Chris Knobloch really needs to prove that he can be a better coach than Paul Maurice, and I can't say that with confidence right now. So I'm going to say my official prediction is going to be the Florida Panthers in 6 games, beating the Edmonton Oilers and winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. All right, that's been me. That's been my analysis, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, preview of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals starting June 4th, which is tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Thank you guys for watching, sticking around. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, follow the Instagram, follow the TikTok, and follow us on follow us on our social media accounts as well. We appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.